I'm going to share with you 10 things you definitely don't want to say when you're walking into a dealership to try to buy a new car. The first thing you definitely don't want to say to the dealer when you walk into their showroom floor, because it will give them the upper hand financially, is,
"Yeah, you betcha. I'm paying cash, guys. You gonna cut me a great deal or what?"
Very few people actually pay cash anyhow, to the tune of about 16%. Yeah, that's right. 84% of the buyers today either finance or lease their cars. Very few actually pay cash. At the end of the day, if you tell them you're paying cash, you will pay too much for that car on the front end. So the second thing I would never ever tell a dealer when you walk in there is,
"Really need to buy a car today, guys. I really need one today. I need one right away. I got some trips to make. Can you help me out with this today?"
as soon as you say that, you know, guaranteed you're going to pay way too much for that car. So the third thing you definitely don't want to say to these guys is,
"Well, I need to make this fit into a budget. That's all I have is $400 a month. Do you think you can make that work for me, guys?"
So the fourth thing you never want to tell these clowns is,
"Yes, I'm a proctologist. Yeah, I'm a doctor. You know what? I'm looking for a premium BMW. Make sure you give me a good deal, would you?"
and guess what? We're on number 5. And number 5 is basically,
"Wow, this thing is great. Wow, this thing is great. But does it have cup holders? And can I plug in my cell phone into it here and play my music in this thing?"
so number 6 is a good one. It's really going to send all kinds of signals to the dealer that you're desperate and you don't have a clue, and you're going to wind up paying more than you should. As a matter of fact, you really should train yourself. Stand in front of a mirror at home and try to prevent that. Train yourself from not getting pulled into this.
"I really love this car. I need this thing. What is it?"
So the next thing you don't want to say to these guys is,
I don't know much about cars. It looks nice. It probably goes pretty fast. Does it get good fuel mileage?"
So the next one is one that we've all likely experienced at some point. If you've ever walked across those thresholds, you've probably been asked this question. So never admit to it, and that is,
"Yeah, you bet. I have a trade. It's over there. It's that little truck. That's my trade-in. I'll take whatever you guys think is fair."
and so another one is one that I would recommend not saying either, and that is,
"Whoa, that is so pretty, but I really don't want to be ripped off, guys. I don't want to be taken to the cleaners just because I like a nice car. You guys won't let that happen, will you?"
so here's a great one for you.
"Well, my credit really isn't very good. I've made some bad buys in the past. Are you guys able to help out with that, you think?"
So those are the 10 things you definitely don't want to tell a dealer when you walk into their store.
So that was a video. The reason for the video was really to talk about some of the videos online, but also the amount of views on these videos is crazy. This one had about 100,000 views so far, something to that effect, which was one of the lighter ones. But more importantly, it's really important, I think, to have a sense of what people are watching and researching online, customers, before they come into a dealership. So as normal, we review a couple books. I picked a couple books that weren't car books this week, just because it's a management show. One of them that I like, if you're familiar with the DISC profile, which is a personality profile. It's a really good book that'll help you not only with managing people, but also with relationships in your life, because there'll be stories. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. It's by Tomek Eriksson, who I think is from Norway or something, or Sweden. But they came up with the DISC profile, which is a great way to really get a handle on personalities. Because if you're in a store and you're training people, understanding where they're coming from and their personality will help you. Cracking the Sales Management Code is one by Jason Jordan, and the Next Level Sales Coaching book. So those are just a few that I thought were interesting. Go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We greatly appreciate you spending some time with us. And first of all, before we get started, we always do our covering of our proverbial behinds and just say the views and opinions expressed here in the AutoHub or show are not necessarily those of Ian and I. Sometimes we agree, usually we agree, but officially, it's not officially that we agree with anything. It's the views of our guests. So today is our Selling Cars in 2021 show, featuring our good friend and our own version of a TED Talk, Ted Hamelin. And joining us from the great confines of semi-northern Alberta, where you can big sky country, which they actually created that term for the people down in Montana, typical Americans stealing things from Canadians. And Ted, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, good morning to everybody. And first of all, we are in the north, so I don't know if we're trapped or not. I don't think we're necessarily trapped in the north. I think we chose it, the best part of Canada to be in. Sorry about that, John. But I've been around the car business since the late 90s. I've sold cars, and you know what? I've done every position in the front end of a store, like most of us that have hung around for a long time. I've been lucky enough to go to NADA in the US and study how to actually operate stores in a little bit more of a professional manner. And myself and my wife have just taken over the Ford store in High Prairie. So it's Revolution Ford. We've been up here since the beginning of the year in a pandemic world. Interesting times.
Yeah, for darn sure. And the beauty of having you here today, Ted, is because you've done pretty much everything in the car biz, short of being turning wrenches, and maybe you have done that too. And you have a great opportunity to share with us just how things are in 2021. And I have to comment on that video because we in the car business have changed. We're doing things cooperatively. We're building relationships with people like we didn't before, and we're full disclosure and being very open with our customers. Yet, what gets all the views out there is how to stop the car dealer from screwing you. And like Ian said, 100,000 views of this guy, which was really very cute, but there's so many of them, it's just crazy. So Ted, first question for you. How's the job of managing sales teams changed in the recent years?
I think more of it is a mindset. It does probably play to why these videos do get a lot of views. I think by and large, it's old fodder. I think if we treated people that way today in 2021, where we spun them around and threw their keys on the roof, like the old, the old stories go. I don't know that I've never been involved in selling cars that way, even in, 20 plus years. I've heard stories, but I think that's all really changed by and large. Again, if you went in and told, here's a good example of that. We have a process that is designed to help a person or a family come to a store and without much aggravation, celebrate the fact that they're going to buy a new car, a new van, whatever it is, and not have a bunch of roadblocks. So if you don't tell us that you have credit issues as a strategy, that's probably going to cause you more problems. But in a video, I can throw up a video today as clickbait and say, hey, 10 ways to screw a dealer, and come up with lots of fun things that we could say, but we don't really shop that way. People do come in and they want to buy a car, and we're just really nice to them, and we ask them a few questions, and they tell us the answers, and we satisfy the questions and sell them a car. It is really that simple. We get in our own way a lot of times, Jeff.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I guess surprised me when I was doing the homework, and it was true when I was doing the homework for last week's show, which was on the good in the car business, was the lack of good videos. And just, like the business has changed. These videos might have been interesting 10 years ago, but, realistically, this is how we do things different at ABC dealership. But more importantly, this is why we do them differently.
Right.
And I think that's really what dealers, and also people in the business who just work in the car business need to be doing better. And I see a huge opportunity there, because why someone should have 1 million views on a video that's 20 years old in terms of content is crazy to me. But anyway, what is the biggest challenges that you face with your sales teams today? I mean, obviously we're trying to attract, people that are from different generations. We've had that conversation a number of times on the show on different episodes. If you haven't watched The Good, the Bad, and the Old Dogs versus Young Guns, it's an interesting show. But what's your opinion there, Ted, on the challenges that you have sales teams?
I think that if you've been around a long time in the business, maybe some of the challenges are holding on to what used to work. Every business evolves. This business is definitely evolving at a rapid pace, I'd say. There have been a few disruptors in the US that have tried us on as an industry. And I think overall, the HR aspect is the aspect that has rightly changed. We used to be a pretty rough and tumble industry that had maybe more in common with the oil industry than the financial services industry, as a good example. And now what's going on is we're really looking at it differently, and we're trying to develop people instead of just having a big funnel. And we don't care about, how many people we run through, and we don't care about turnover. And we are a lot more cerebral when we think about the real plan for the store in this era. So there's not taking people out back anymore. There's none of that. It's a lot more. It's more of a thinking person's game these days. It's not a physical, we're going to sell cars. You're going to make appointments. It's almost a threatening thing. It isn't like that anymore. Today it's show me, don't tell me.
So
GMs don't have the staff they used to have. That's another thing.
Would you say that's generational is the reason, or just change in the industry?
I think both. I think it's both, Ian. I think that it's been forced on the industry, but it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. There were a lot of cowboys in our industry that were definitely in charge. And now, if you really want to be in charge, it's more of you have to really know a lot more about the dealership and not just have a heavy hand. You have to lend a hand a lot more. That's maybe a different way of putting it.
And when would you say, can you pin down sort of when that started to change? This is a question from the audience.
Yeah, probably about 10 years ago, I think. About 10, it probably started 20 years ago. And as an industry, you probably resisted it and ignored it for 10 years and lost a lot of good people to that. And, I don't think it's unreasonable to change in actuality. I think what it is the Simon Sineks of the world have opened our eyes and challenged us to deliver what we know in a more palatable way in 2021. It's funny, Ian and Jeff and everybody else, the more we learn, the more the same thing. It's just a different way of delivering it and a different way of executing.
Well, it's very funny because we talk about the HR. Some people don't practice it. Some people do. Do you find that up where you are, because obviously there's less people, that your HR practices are better than it would be in a place like a city?
Well, they are because of need. I think if you're going to be really frank about the conversation, again, in 2021, the planet has changed so much in the last couple of years that, and in a very good way, something we're very cognitive here in this store, and I think a lot of GMs and a lot of owners are the same way. We want to make sure our sales floor and our entire team here represents the community. You know what I mean? And that's very important to us. So what we're doing is we are really looking deep at the people that live in the community and really working with them and developing them and giving them the same opportunities they would have in Edmonton or Toronto or anywhere else to learn the trade.
Okay. And you said the industry has changed so much in the last couple of years. How about the job of a sales manager? How would you describe that job today versus yesterday?
Well, it's vastly changed. It's hugely changed. A sales manager today versus when I first came into the business. When I first came into the business, the sales manager was more of a raw coach. And today, a sales manager has to really be almost a conduit to social media, to being in touch with marketing, being able to marry those two things with training and with what we do today. So I think that a sales manager today, well, first of all, when we all started, there weren't any CRMs really. So that's changed. The DMSs have changed. Technology has vastly changed. The internet plays such a huge part of what we do. I think really good sales managers in this era, they know how to create content, and large amounts of content, not just good content once a week. Lots and lots and lots of content. It's a bit different that way. I think that sales managers today are really aware of how important databases are and how to take care of them a lot differently than the predecessors did. So, but again, you see, we used to hit the phones. Now we hit the texts. The more it changes, the more it stays the same. Now, I would say though, the biggest thing is the amplification of what you do. There's a lot more ramifications to it because of the internet. So be really good at customer service.
And what about with customers? How has that changed for sales managers?
I think that it has made us better without a doubt, because there is the imminent threat of backlash online. So the truth is that we should be as good as we say we are, with nowhere to hide. If we're going to be transparent, that actually means transparent. So it has forced the hand towards the consumer, which is a good thing. It's better for our industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to use the example, Jeff. I don't know if you know about Chris, but Chris, he used to work at a Mitsubishi store, I think in Edmonton, and then he joined Auto Canada. And I think he initially worked in Calgary, now he's back in Edmonton. But he's always been very good at doing content in a very dynamic way to promote whatever brand. And I see that from salespeople, for sure. We've had some on the show. I see it sometimes from different groups, but the thing that's interesting about Chris is he clearly has fun with it. And I think that's part of how he engages probably the younger members of his staff and younger customers, is he's using the latest tools. He's out there doing it, having fun with it, but more importantly, he's doing it consistently. And I think that's, I guess sales years ago was a phone skill, it was a texting skill, I guess, email skill. But today, I think you really have to have access to a wide array of tools to really not only engage that customer, but to make it interesting and to be successful, especially with the younger generation who doesn't remember time before having a phone, right? So I think that's really important. Now, Ted, obviously during the pandemic, there's more virtual sales and processes for some dealers. Do you think these changes are permanent, or do you think customers will start returning to showrooms as before, or something in between? What's your thought?
I think it's something in between. I think probably like the rest of the business, I think that this has forced some of the dinosaurs to realize that some of the things can be done a different way. I think that really what it's done in our industry is probably just forced it to happen a little quicker than it was going to happen. I think a lot of the things that are happening now are already going to happen. What do I mean by that? Pump in, pump out, having drivers, selling, to way beyond your PMA, having an open mind like that. I think all of that stuff now, where you might be in High Prairie, but you might have a team that's working in Edmonton as a subprime pod. None of that stuff was done by and large in a big way in the past, but in the future, absolutely. So I think that we'll just get a little more progressive, like most other industries.
So do you think the OEMs are going to have to reevaluate their whole focus on, you have to sell in this area? I hear that a lot from dealers where they're widening where they're selling, but I hear at the same time from the OEMs saying, well, no, you need to focus on this catchment area. What's
the problem with that? Yeah, it would be very difficult for the OEM to ever be aggressive on selling out of your PMA, because that's not what they do.
Right.
They give us all our own PMA. But that being said, it's a wink and a nudge without a doubt. If I'm selling, 500 kilometers from my store, nobody's calling me up and giving me heck for that.
Right.
I think we have to, if 500 kilometers away right now isn't going to be on the same customer value plane that I'm on, and I manage to steal that customer, so be it. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, because I've been talking to clients of mine in my day-to-day job, and I hear some rumblings from the OEM side where they're saying, okay, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. But what I'm seeing from the data I have access to, which is obviously limited, is that that's not really the way the business is going. Yeah, you need to dominate your PMA, but clearly customers, they just want a good experience. And they're going to go to that dealer who gives them one, or maybe even buy that remotely. And I think that's something that the OEMs need to adapt to. My question for you, though, is as someone who's obviously in a little bit of a less urban community, what percentage do you think of vehicle sales are going to go that way moving forward? Like, what do you think in terms of what are you seeing?
I think that's a big question, only because it depends on your market that you're in. So I think just because it's closest to us, Edmonton as an example, they have more customers than they know what to do with, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think they have to sell to their PMA as much as I do. I think that the more remote stores, the more small market stores, the mom and pop stores of the past are where all the real action is in the next 5 years for people that are buying stores, or where the edge is in the business. And the reason there'll be an edge there is there will be some people after this, to get to your point, after the pandemic, that are going to reach out to some of the small market communities, buy those stores, and kind of hybrid them in to, we give the value of the city, but we also give the handshake of the country. And there's going to be a hybrid of that's where the evolution will probably end up. Edmonton doesn't have to worry. City Ford's not probably sitting around thinking about how to sell, 20 more Fords. They've got a really good handle on Edmonton.
So from a point of view of someone coming from a sales management role and then moving into a GM or a part owner or an ownership role, how do you feel that that's changed your opinion of managing a team, managing a store, managing customers, customer experience? How do you think that's changed the way you look at things?
Again, Ian, it would depend on where that happens. I'm a little more in touch with rural markets because that's what I've specialized in. So there's a good example of how the more it changes, the more it stays the same. I would say that in the small market community, what really is working is a dealer principal that's standing in the showroom every day, that's talking to customers. How old school is that? I mean, that's Sam Walton almost, right? But also behind the scenes, and we call our process here the skeleton. Nobody can see it. We don't want customers seeing it. It's protection. What it is it just helps us get through what we want to deliver value-wise to a small market customer that the customer doesn't need to see. But it's real process. We do it the right way, but we just don't brag about it to the small market customer. And I think that's what you're going to see is more of a female or a male dealer principal standing out in the showroom, shaking hands, but bringing a lot more technology and a lot more 2021 to the small market.
Yeah,
That's what we see happening, and they love it. You know how they'll talk about how we don't sell cars in the small market on Saturdays, and you know what, small market people, they don't like texts, and they don't like to be, small market service databases don't like to be ever That's not true at all. They love it. They love it. Just don't tell them they love it.
Well, everybody is different. It's Fabian asked a question, says your thoughts on the term digital transformation in the auto industry. However, I remember up until 2 years ago when I checked, the largest Dodge dealer in the world is located in Wyoming. And they've been doing that for 15 or 20 years. And it's now I can't, Kellogg, Idaho, Idaho,
Correct.
which is smaller than Wyoming.
Right.
And so it's not just digital transformation. They've been doing that. But share your thoughts on this digital transformation.
Well, I mean, so he's been doing that. It's true for 15 or 20 years, and we've all looked at it. If you're a student of the game, he's in a marketplace. I think it's under 5,000.
750.
Is that what it is? See, it's madness. And if you look at his inventory, it's acres and acres and acres. And you know what? He's selling cars into California. So what he's decided 15 or 20 years ago was, yeah, we all have the same cars, same vehicles. How am I going to get it to you if you're distance in a way that you perceive it as being very valuable? And he's using technology to do it. That's what we're going to do in the 20s. That's what we're going to do in the 20s. Then we're going to let electric catch up to us because there's going to be a lot of volume there. Until then, we're just going to become better retailers through, as the question was, digital transformation. We have to become really, really good.
Yeah.
With these things. Some of the things I'm doing as a GM, just little things. I've got my entire database in my phone. So I've emailed myself the entire database in Excel so that if anybody calls me as a GM, it comes up as who it is, who my customer is. I can do, as an example, last week we did a quick open work order recall. I call them myself. Now, 10 years ago, GMs weren't doing stuff like that. It was harder to do. Now it's just on your phone. It's in order. All of that stuff I see Jeff and Ian as this is what we're going to be doing in the future as a GM, as a sales manager. Sales managers need to be developing these sorts of skills so that when they become GMs, they can actually make big differences in the store.
Yeah. Well, what I did with my sales teams and sales managers when I was last in a store, we actually shopped these guys down in Idaho.
Yeah.
And their follow-up was not only professional, it was not only politely persistent, but you found yourself sitting there going, how do I not buy from these guys?
Yeah, right. Like they've done all the things right. I don't care if they're in Kellogg. Do it.
Yeah. They actually sell cars into Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at customers, and that's part of the reason I brought up the whole OEM mindset, is there isn't really any extra customers. And I talk to dealers all the time and OEMs as well. When you look at competition in the market, whether it be electric, whether it be different models, it's really about how do you talk to that customer in such a way that makes sense for them and make it easier for them to buy versus not buy in the platform that they use. It's not about location. There's more and more companies now that ship cars anywhere, but I see that as a change in the way cars are sold globally, where you look at it and say, okay, well, I want to buy a Ford product, Ford Bronco, for example, which is obviously a hot product right now. Where could I buy that? Well, I'm going to buy it from the dealer that has, presence, but more importantly has service. And I use the example of Rob Ruth, who we've had on the show. I mean, he's in a very small market. He sells, 500 cars a month or something like that. And he's not near a big city, I don't believe. So, again, it's about how am I standing out online? And when someone actually takes the initiative to reach out to my store, whether it's through the internet or through a phone or through an email, how do I do that process? So I guess having worked in a lot of markets in Canada, big and small markets, how do you see that from a dealer perspective, Ted?
Something that you were just Yeah, my phone's lighting up right now from the show too. That's good. Something that you did spark, I saw a little question there. I'm going to circle back for a second.
Yeah.
Did you see the question? Are sales managers becoming more marketing managers?
Yep.
Right now, we're in the process of looking for a sales manager, coincidentally. So one of the biggest questions I've had in the interviews is, how do you see getting business, increasing business, looking for business, farming for business in 2021? And I have to tell you, shocking results, because there's a lot of no answers. And that is where I'm looking for gold. I'm looking for a person that understands how to market. And that will be a big part of the sales manager's job in 2021 through 25 through 30 is where are these customers? How am I going to get them off of Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
And that is the skill set that is compounding right now, especially through the pandemic. More people are online than ever. More people are spending time online. And I did want to answer that question because I would have asked that question before these interviews.
Right.
Surprised how little marketing skills are transferring right now in our industry. The good ones, though, they understand that part of it.
So was there some good answers?
Well, yeah, there were a couple, but en masse, it was, you heard things like, hey, well, the up bus doesn't come as much as it used to come. So when they do come, we got to spend extra attention on them. To me, that's not a strategy. That's kind of like Bill and Ted, right? What's your strategy? We're going to give her.
So did you change the job description? Have you changed how you interview?
No, not yet, because it's out there now, and I probably have found a person, but it is it's kind of a quick peek at where the industry is right now. If I was a young sales manager right now, man, oh man, I'd be getting really, really good at marketing, at finding ways to tap in to your potential marketplace. I don't think it's ever been easier.
Oh, I would agree 100%. I mean, when I look out there at manager salespeople groups that do good marketing, we've had a number of them on the show, whether it be positivity about the community or whether it be differences in what they do or just really informing the consumer, it makes a huge difference. Because if I'm in a market that has 5 Ford stores or 10 Ford stores or 20 Ford stores, it's really about standing out from everybody else. It's not necessarily all about marketing spend. It's about being creative and hitting people where they are, right? And we all know they're on a phone, they're on the internet, they're doing that all the time. So how can you stand out? And how can you make that difference? I got a question here. What training do you have or send your managers to in order to be efficient and leading edge, in your opinion?
Well, for me, and I'm a little biased, I really, really strongly believe in NADA only because, I'm alumni and I went there.
Yeah.
But Canada has a really good automotive school right now that's starting to really take off. That's a really good school. So anybody serious, I think that you should be going and upping the ante. Education's very, very important. There are so many good online marketing courses right now for Facebook, for Instagram, there's so much of that. I think you just got to focus, drill down and understand what part of the job you're doing. If you're taking pictures, again, there's ways of doing this that are better.
Right.
Don't just take the pictures and say, look, there are my 15 pictures. I did my job.
100%.
Right.
Jeff, did you have any questions there?
Well, I have to comment that do you think it's easier today because, the Automotive Business School of Canada is again centered pretty close to the center of the universe in their eyes. And we always found that people from points east or even central Canada, because I'm sure even going there from the Maritimes is a problem, and out here in the West, we found very few people that ever attended Georgian College. So, but now do you think it's a lot more accessible to everybody to actually do NADA or do that? Ted, are you there? You look like you've frozen. And the wonders of the internet. This show, it's our guest has technical issues versus Ian, who's been having technical issues.
Well, it's funny. I've talked to the Georgian College folks and hoping to have them on the show that we're going to have later on this month or the next month. And I think when you look at NADA or CADA, or you look at any of this education, it's all great, but it's a question of, is there an interest from a dealer point of view? Like, are the dealerships valuing that, or the dealer groups? So maybe that's a wider discussion. Oh, they even have teaching staff on the West Coast, Sue said. Because
I wonder who that would be.
Maybe Sue can speak to it. Sue, you have any thoughts on that?
Sue?
Sorry, guys. I'm actually in my garage riding my stationary bike because I do every Monday with you. So if I'm a little out of breath, you'll know why. I was a graduate of the Automotive Business School of Canada back in 1991. And there was few and far between on the West Coast. But like you say, Jeff, our West Coast dealers need to start valuing it. And the college is now working with Auto Canada. I'm teaching in Edmonton. I'm teaching a course in Vancouver, but in Vancouver, I had 12 participants this last go round with my new and used managers course. And in Toronto, I had 29. So, either the colleges needs to do a better job reaching out to the West Coast dealers. I don't know, but I think we work really hard to stay current. And I think we definitely look at things a little bit different than they do in the US. There is a difference between the US market and the Canadian market, especially when we speak rurally.
Right.
And I think that there's the value in the Automotive Business School of Canada. I hope that helps. Again, sorry for the out of breathness.
Not a problem.
Well, you could have just said to everybody, I am really actively training people right now, and I'm so passionate about it. But it's very true. But I think also out there, people think that way. Kids are in school, and I've met a lot of people, like factory reps, etc., that went right out of high school into Georgian College, and that was their university. And here, like you just said, it's dealers sending people there, but we also perhaps may have to reach out to high schools and that sort of thing, is make this an option, an alternative.
Most definitely. And again, the course that I personally teach is for people that are working in the industry already. So that's a little bit different than the actual going right from school, which I did way back when. And again, it's a bit different. The NADA program and our program that I teach are similar, whereas the college program is a 3-year diploma. Actually, I think now you can get your degree, 4-year program. And I can't recommend it enough for young people. It's awesome. You have people in the industry, that you work with, and it's fantastic. Send your kids.
Well, so what you need is you need somebody to actually go and knock on the doors of the school boards and their guidance counselors.
Yeah, and I would do that locally years and years ago. But again, it's so far removed from what they think. Parents don't think that the automotive business is a great job for their kids. They don't understand, the money that can be made and the skills they need. They just totally underrate it, I think. They don't think of it as an option.
So I actually have a question for you, Sue, in light of Ted having technical difficulties. How did you connect with them to become a instructor or a prof? We'll use the term prof, like that, eh?
So I had gone to school there and made friends. I actually worked in the co-op department as a student part-time when I was there. And I I made friends with Karen Woods, who is a teacher at Georgian College. She saw my retirement announcement and said, "We need you." And so I sent in my resume. Now, talk about follow-up. I had to be back to them 6 times before they hired me. I knew I wanted that job and I just stayed on them. Email, LinkedIn messages, text, you name it. But yeah, follow-up pays off, kids.
Your dealership skills.
Yep.
Now, actually, you're not alone here because Bill Harvey has come up saying that there's 2 pathways: student studies in class for a 2-year diploma and a 4-year degree. And Bill is an adjunct professor there, Automotive Business School of Canada. And the second pathway is a mature in dealership management program similar to NADA. Sorry, Ted. And it's actually patterned after the NAD program of Northwood University. So that's very interesting. I didn't know that, Bill. So there's more of you out here than we think. Where are you located, Bill?
Ontario, Jeff.
Oh, center of the universe again.
I love it when you say that. Yes, and we really do feel that way. The nerve center of the entire country.
Well, us out here in Western Canada, we have grown up to have a natural, I'm not going to say distrust, but a natural interesting, I don't know what you'd call it, but to the central Canada. And it is, it's actually nice to have that input there too, because it's, it'd be a great thing to have that more of a presence here with somebody like Sue. And our friend Ted is back.
Maybe he has some thoughts on the Canadian versus the U.S. automotive education.
Well, I think that the Canadian one, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
We can hear
Hey,
you.
sorry about that. I think the Canadian version would be much better. When I went, there wasn't as much of a choice, and I had to endure a lot of the American legal side of it. So, which obviously wasn't relevant to the Canadian business. It was a good learning experience, but so I think any of the people that will be further educating would be going to the Canadian side.
So, what's the commitment from a general manager point of view, or from someone who maybe is a salesperson wants to get into general management? I mean, what's the road for them with the NADA program?
You know what? A lot of mostly it's just belief from your dealer principal, because it's expensive, and yeah, the store gives up their statement the statement goes with the person. So for a year, they drill down on your statement. So it's privacy stuff, not a big deal.
Right.
You have to believe in that person a lot, because they're gonna drill down into your business and know everything about your business. So it would be a person that you have a long-term plan for.
Right. And I know historically there's always been this, dealers' kids sort of going to, whether it be Northwood or Georgian. Do you feel that the OEs have an appreciation?
I think that that's kind of, there's a little noise there that you just got to tune out, and probably some of the guys, and there was only one lady in my course of 50, which is a little sad, of my class of 50, but it's a mixture of dealer kids versus others. You just ignore it. A lot of the dealer kids in this era are really striving to learn, and they've changed too, as well as everybody else. Is that what you were getting at, Ian?
Well, I was just curious as to, from an OEM perspective. I mean, obviously someone who's either buying a dealership or taking over a dealership, do you think that checks a box for them?
Oh, I think it's a huge, they came and told us at NADA that it did check a box. That is a box today, I think, that probably will need to be checked if you want to buy a store. Back in the day, there were dealer development programs that most of the OEMs had in place, and if you were really good at selling cars, you probably could own a dealership one day, and that's changed for sure.
Oh yeah.
So if someone was, let's just say, in their 20s getting into the car business, maybe they have an undergraduate degree, maybe they have a degree from whether it be Northwood or Georgian College, and they want to get into automotive, and their long-term strategy is to become a GM or possibly own a store.
Yeah.
They really need to think about that as part of their long-term strategy.
Oh, I'd say, you know what? Go get your BCom at night. It's very important. Okay. And plan to be in your dealer's wheelhouse constantly saying, I really want to go to school. I really want to go to school. It's a big commitment. I can do it. I've shown you in the past that I've done this. I want to help run your stores in the future. A Bachelor of Commerce is a fantastic way to start the process. I think it's really needed today, much more than in my era. You know, we had people that picked up our pieces in the past. That doesn't happen anymore. If you really want to be a good operator, you know, I think you really have to take it just like we took how good we became at selling cars. You know, we really studied that. We really drilled down on that. Today, if you want to be a GM or an owner, I think you have to do it exactly the same thing and learn how the store works. It's not, there's no more cowboys. There's just pictures of them now.
Any other questions from the audience or from Jeff?
Well, Ted, how do you predict the position as sales managers are going to evolve as we move forward?
I think they're just going to become more educated in the car business. I think they're going to become way better. They're going to become much more fluent in marketing strategies, plans that they're going to be in touch with what's really happening right now. They'll know what's going on and where they're getting the most traction for their ad campaigns. I think that's where they're going to get really good, but it has to be married with training. It can't just be one person knowing it and getting a bunch of people to do it with them. It has to be shared amongst the group. Teamwork today is going to be dream work. We have to conquer the internet, and it's a big beast. So content, good content.
It's
But
very
don't get paralyzed with, I have to make a major motion picture the first time.
Are you accusing us of being dramatic?
You would never do that, never. But yeah. The intro was a little dramatic. I say it was good though. It had some real flair to it.
Well, thank you very much. You know, there was a couple of questions, polls out on LinkedIn recently that talked about sales managers and ups, and you know, they said something to the effect of how has the sales manager's role changed, and there was all sorts of comments. They're talking about the internet. They're talking about all that, and they tie in about ups and up systems. I think, John, it was your question about up systems. But one thing that has changed with sales managers that I see, or is changing, is the sales managers no longer sitting in an office in the back. You know, they're, you know, I worked for a group that actually changed and took the receptionists and put them somewhere else and put the sales managers at the reception desk, and found that worked very well.
You know, it's funny, just to real quickly, Ted, you were making comments about picking up the phone and actually calling the open ROs as a GM position, where years ago that was not your job, that was someone else's. Why are these open? And you know, just asking the questions, not actually digging into the reality of it. And you know, I think that when you have a GM, again, it always starts at the top, but when you have a GM that's that engaged, having a sales manager that you want to have a description of a marketing manager, what are you going to do to change the business? Well, when the GM's that involved, it's not some mystery, and it's not a bunch of questions. How come this and how come that and how can we miss target and all kinds of things? Everybody already knows why they're successful or why they missed or whatever the case may be. And it just reminded me on the weekend in Alberta here, we have some limitations, and we went to a grocery store, a small independent grocery store, and the owner was greeting people as we stood in line and waited to enter his store. And I'd said to myself as we're standing in the line, how is he running the store and standing out here? But he was running the store from there. And when we got up to the front of the line, he just made quick conversation. What are you looking for today? Oh, well, you should try this as well. And don't forget to ask the pastry people about this and all the stuff. And he was just owning that lineup. And everybody coming into his store was conditioned when they went in there, and they knew where to find the cheese and where to find the produce. And on the way out, did you find everything we talked about? Did you look at this? Did you try that? And he was running the store from the lineup. And it was absolutely brilliant. And not only that, it gave us an amazing feeling to have that personal touch with the chef, with the owner, with the whatever, right? And so,
Yeah.
and it was just a personal reflection when you'd said that you were reaching out and making those calls. It's really powerful when someone does that of some power. So good on you.
Yeah, Barry, I agree with you there. And that's an awesome observation on your part. I'm trying really hard to ground everybody in the store to really realize how important it is and how much, like when people enter your building, it really is a psychological thing. They are a little nervous. They want to be welcomed. And if the GM, the owner, the sales manager, whoever it is really there up front doing it, in this era too, I think it's amplified. It's, wow, we're going back to real customer service.
Well, in the struggle, if you think about it, if I was out doing some shopping in the morning and I was going to swing by a car store in the afternoon, I better get the exact same experience, if not better, that I did at the grocery store, or I am miffed. I'm set off.
Right.
So let's say, for example, I was at the grocery store, then I went to a car dealership, and then I went out for dinner. And I met the owner at the grocery store. Nobody really cared that much at the car store. And then the chef greeted me at the restaurant. Well, that car store is in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm never going back to them.
And you know, Barry, to that point, John, everybody else here, this is probably the real meat and potatoes of what a show like this is for. Today, what's happened, in my humble opinion, is now as a GM, I probably am going to do a couple of those steps to the sale. So I'm probably going to do the meet and greet for my salesperson, and maybe even part of, we can't say qualifying counsel in this era because it's just so threatening, and we have to call it a customer interview. So we'll call it that. But I might even do half of that with my salesperson today because I want them to be successful in a way that I've never wanted in the past. In the past, it might be, look, if you can't get this, if you can't get these 25 questions that you're going to ask the customer, we'll get somebody else to do it. Today, the GMs and the GSMs and the sales managers have to be a part of the process. They have to be willing.
I have to share an experience, by the way, because Bill made the question about customer-focused approach. And I pivoted in the last couple of years away from new car dealerships. I actually help a little independent used car dealer. And I had a Cadillac I had to take in to get a diagnosis done, and only this caddy dealer could do it. I went into a pretty large Cadillac store. I took the vehicle in. I drove into their drive-through. They waved me in. Nobody said hello. I stood by the car for 10 minutes until I walked up to a guy at the counter because we had an appointment, but I had to speak to a specific advisor who made the appointment. I waited 5 more minutes. He finally came up, said, go have a seat inside. I walk inside, beautiful store. It's a $10 million building, just the building on 15 acres of land. There must have been 15 or 20 salespeople. I'm in the showroom and I'm sitting there. Nobody says hello. I bet you 10 people walked by me. Nobody asked, do you want a coffee? The sales manager, he's way in the back. Like he isn't even anywhere near the showroom. As I said this to Ian last night, I said, I think I look like a moderately, affluent type person. Not saying I'm great, but I don't look like some so-and-so from nowhere. And I'm looking at vehicles and nobody's even looking at me.
Yeah.
And we have to change. This place is lucky because, there isn't another GM dealer for about, and this is urban, obviously, for about 10 to 12 miles. And I literally was, because I wasn't there, I was miffed. Imagine somebody looking to buy a car.
But I think to Ted's point, it doesn't matter how far away the next GM store is.
Yeah.
Because Jeff, if you were really in the market, you would look for the one that actually is going to respond to your emails, answer your phone calls, and
Yeah.
do anything like that, right? Because you've already written those people off and you're not even in the market.
Well, if I was a Ford store, I'd go to Ted.
Yeah. Well, Ted, I got a question from Fabian, and it's about the general manager role. He says, did you have interest from females for this position?
I haven't personally yet. There are plenty of skillful females out there that will be taking these roles. Absolutely, without question. You'll see as time goes here. I think in our situation here, we have a lot of female horsepower in our group. I think, again, when I mentioned earlier about how representation of your community is super important, it is at the top especially.
Great thoughts there.
So no, I mean, females are, yeah, a huge part of this new way. If you don't have a female, this is a bold statement, you better have a female somewhere in your sales manager, general manager wheelhouse. You have to have somebody there that represents that side of the business for sure.
It's funny because we actually had a women, and we've had numerous women in automotive shows, and Sue was on, and I commented about how the fact that it was quite a while ago, probably in the mid 2000s, at the auction, and there was little Sue amongst all these big men, and she would stand right in the front and bidding cars up, and guys didn't know how to react to her.
Mm-hmm.
And of course now it used to be she was the anomaly.
Yeah.
And all you have to see is that is going on with a tremendous thing. And it's about time because, hey, how many times did we learn, us have been around a long time, that the lady is the one that makes most of the decisions even for a man buying a car, truck.
Oh yeah. In our store here, Rebecca's our general sales manager here, and she really does do all of the tough presentations because they react best to her. It's not I'm not propping her up. It's just that, you know what, when a female is professional and knows what they're talking about, there's levels to the game.
Blows a guy away when a woman tells him that he's the truck he's looking at has the wrong gear ratios to pull his heavy trailer.
Or even just the philosophy of the deal. Just the philosophy of the deal.
That for
powerful stuff, right? When you start including everybody in it, it does change things.
Definitely.
Social experiments.
Yep. Well, everybody, we've reached the end of our show. Any final questions from the audience or Ted? Any comments?
I had a lot of fun. That's my biggest
Oh, you went quiet, Ted.
I said I had a lot of fun. That's my comment. I think that's the most important part of the day.
You did a good job, Ted. Good job.
Yeah, the AutoHub show where we have fun. Ian.
Well, I really appreciate the thoughts, but more importantly, the different points of view. We get on the show a lot of dealers that are in big markets, and I think that we forget sometimes that there's, obviously smaller market dealers and smaller market general managers, and they have similar challenges, just at a smaller scale potentially, or as you said, Jeff, possibly at a bigger scale, depending on how they look at it. So I think what's changing is it's no longer about location, it's about service. And that's something we've been preaching for a long time, but I think it's more important today than ever is, what experience did you get in that store not only reflects on the dealer, but may reflect on the brand. They may say, hey, like, you know, I wanted to buy a Cadillac, but since the store was so bad, I went and I bought a Lincoln, or I went and I bought whatever. So I think that you know, the OEM needs to be more in tune with not only the experience at the dealership, but how it reflects on their brand, and less worried about where that brand is or where that dealer is selling cars to. More like, listen, they're a representative of the company. How can we have them help them be successful and create an award-winning experience? And ironically, based on that Barry's thought on grocery stores, the answer is in the past. The answer is, you know, years ago when you owned a business, you cared about every customer, not just the ones that, you know, maybe your salesman couldn't handle. You were happy to have the person in the store, right? And I think that's you know, a great playbook for the future.
You know, just real quick on that, Ian, it's so powerful. You and I know this, but you know, like how many GMs or dealer principals can we actually name that have reached out to customers that have bought multiple cars from them and actually said, hey, thanks. Like, I was just going through some paperwork. I noticed you bought 10 cars from my store. I just want to say thanks, man. Like, really, I really appreciate it. And if you ever need anything, here's who I am. Like, who's making that call? Nobody, right?
Well, I mean, I saw this during the early days of the pandemic. There were big, large groups that you would know. One that I remember, I think, was Fred Beans, which is a big US group. And Fred Beans did a video, which was fine. He probably could have got some help and had to do that video before he did it. Like, maybe he wasn't the right guy, I don't know. But at least he made the attempt, right? A lot of these big deal groups, you didn't see the Hendrick family doing that. I mean, but what it says to me is that, you know, you should see more of that. Instead of just the video on the website, how our store is great, it should be a more regular media talking about, you know, why I appreciate you coming in, why I appreciate the business, how it helps me personally, how it helps the community personally. I mean, there should be more of that. And I don't think, whether it be a CEO of a large corporation or the owner of a large deal group or even a small deal group, I don't think you can avoid that anymore. I think you have to be the face of that business. You know, you have to be out there at least talking to the customers and potential customers on a regular basis. You just have to. You can't avoid it, right?
Well, it's like Barry said, it's that guy at the grocery store. Too many owners, general managers, they view their job as to sit in the back and look at numbers, and their sales managers too. And boy, get up front and, you know, in BCom, when you get your BCom or you get your economics degree, there isn't a course on how come I have to do everything. It's a course on business, on creating business. And with that, we like to finish on the hour. Everybody, please tell your friends about the AutoHub show and our YouTube channel and our podcast, which are getting all sorts of stuff. And we aim to be replacing Grant Cardone on your car radio and the drive to work by next week, so that Ian and I can join the Undercover Billionaire show. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you, Ted, for taking the time. Scott, John, and Barry, as always, we appreciate your support, and have a fabulous week. And it's sunny and a blue sky here in Vancouver, a rarity. All the best. Thanks,
Enjoy,
Ted.
guys. Thanks. Have a good day.
Cheers.